Campus to Canton. Campus to Canton on the Better Sports Network.
The countdown is on, Chris Moxley. The countdown is officially on. And Chris is rubbing his hands together. This time, when we air next week, we will be on the eve of college football happening in week 0. It's Felix Sharpe, Chris Moxley. This is the Campus to Canton show on Better Sports Network. We are your college football show on this network. Mox, the season is almost here, and I'm getting excited. We're going to go through a Pac-12 preview today. We're going to kind of squeeze it in because we've got a few other things to talk about. So we're really going to try to squeeze it in. The Pac-12 this is the last year that'll be the Pac-12.
Pac-4, really.
Pac-4. It's going to be the Pac-4. Between what? Oregon, Washington State, Stanford, and
Cal.
I don't remember and Cal.
Yeah.
Automatic bid to the
yeah, that's changing.
So we are going to talk about the Pac-12. Caleb Williams, all those guys. We'll give you our analysis on the players in this league. But Mox, you saw this earlier this week. Pro Football Focus, which is one of the titans in football media, for the first time that I've seen, they posted college football Devy rankings. And we have been told that the sport, the college fantasy football, the thing that we're here talking about, is a niche. But I keep seeing companies, big-time companies, invest in the college fantasy space in some respect, whether it be Devy rankings, straight up college fantasy rankings, something. Mox, I think it's the proliferation of college fantasy is happening right before our eyes.
Yeah, it's crazy to think. Even when we started 2.5 years ago now in 2021, there was not a lot of content in this space. It was still considered what I would consider pretty niche. The explosion we've seen over the last 12 to 18 months is crazy. PFF having Devy rankings is like, they are such an industry standard. Like, they're talked about on national broadcasts. PFF rankings are mentioned everywhere. They're
talking about during the games.
That's
during
what I'm
the
saying.
Actual games are bringing up PFF stats, and now Pro Football Focus has their own Devy rankings.
It's pretty cool, and you're seeing other major players in the fantasy space make that same jump. Fantasy Points last year dabbled in it, and I think this year they're expanding their content offering even further. They have some really sharp folks over there. ETR established the run. Evan Sill and Ivan Levitan, they have a CFB DFS product that they're launching this year. The growth of the college format is just incredible. It's unparalleled. College fantasy is growing, I think, bigger than any other format in this space.
And we were told when we started, oh, that's a niche. There's nobody that plays in that. There's no reason to invest in that. And now you have one of the biggest companies in football sports media dedicating content towards it. Just remember where you got it first, folks. Campus2Canton.com. That's where you need to check out the website. If you're tuning in for the first time, maybe you don't even know what Devy is. You might not know what Campus2Canton is. So Devy Fantasy Football is just an extended form of dynasty fantasy football where you have a taxi squad of maybe between 3 and 5 college players on your roster. And you have those players on your roster, and then when they enter the NFL, they're added to your NFL roster. The difference between Campus to Canton and Devy is that instead of those players just sitting stagnant, waiting to go to the NFL, in Campus to Canton, you actually have a full college team, 45 rounds. And you start a college lineup every single week. So you're playing with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Travion Henderson and Caleb Williams and whoever your favorite college players are, from freshmen to seventh-year seniors. You're playing those guys every single week. And then when your college players declare for the NFL draft, if they declare for the NFL draft, they're added to your NFL team. So you get to play a college schedule and an NFL schedule. And it just opens up Saturdays and Sundays to you. You have so much action really throughout the whole day on Saturday, because college football, as we know, doesn't end on the East Coast until 3 o'clock in the morning.
And it starts sometimes on Tuesday. And
That's right.
You get football every single day of the week, except generally speaking Monday. But there's a couple of Monday games this year.
That's right. So we'll take notes because college fantasy is starting to take its hold in this country. We're just at the start. But when PFF is putting out college fantasy content, I think that that's something that we need to take note of. Another thing that we need to take note of is the annual list from Bruce Feldman of The Athletic. It is the freak list. The freak list is the list of these otherworldly athletes in college football, and Bruce Feldman releases the list every single year. I think I'm just going to go through. There's probably, I don't know, about 30 skill position players. I'm not going to tell you about the defensive linemen and the cornerbacks and all that stuff. We'll just stick to the offense so I can give you a sense of the players that are on this list. I'll do it quickly. So we'll start at the bottom. Now, this list is 100 total. So, of that makeup, there's positions all over the field, but I'm just going to read off the skill position guys. Jalen Lucas, Indiana, he's a running back and kick returner. Deion Burks at Purdue, he's a wide receiver. DeCorian, JT Clark, a wide receiver at UTSA. Jerry Bohannon, a quarterback at UCF. Trajan Palmer, UAB wide receiver. Taylon Green, somebody who I think we've talked about on this channel, a quarterback at Boise State. Isaac Tesla, a wide receiver at Arkansas. Malachi Corley, a wide receiver at Western Kentucky, might lead the country in receiving this year. J. Michael Sturdivant, a wide receiver at UCLA. Roman Wilson, a wide receiver at Michigan. Tommy Mellett, a quarterback at Montana State, makes this list for Bruce Feldman. Jalen White, a running back at Georgia Southern. Squirrel White, a wide receiver at Tennessee. Trevor Pena, a wide receiver at Syracuse. Roma Dunze, wide receiver, Washington. Savion Williams, wide receiver, Washington. Jordan Houston, running back, NC State. Brennan Rice, the son of the GOAT, Jerry Rice, wide receiver at USC. He's there at 53. Alex Orji, I should have read the numbers. I didn't read the numbers, so I will hear. I'm not going to go back, but I will.
Well, if you start from the beginning, I was going to say.
I'm not going to start from the beginning. At number 50, Michigan's backup quarterback, Alex Orji. At number 49, the tight end at Georgia, Brock Bowers. At number 47, Ryan Flournoy at Southeast Missouri State. At number 42, Monterey Baldwin, wide receiver at Baylor. I think I've talked about him. He had the fastest recorded on-field time last year at 23-point-something miles per hour. At 41, Branson Robinson, the big running back at Georgia. At number 37, Trainum, a linebacker and running back at Ohio State. At number 36, wide receiver Bub Means at Pitt. At number 34, Braylon Allen at Wisconsin, the running back. At number 33, one of Chris Moxley's favorite, wide receiver Malik Neighbors. At number 31, Nicholas Singleton, running back, Penn State. At number 28, Johnny Wilson, wide receiver, FSU. At number 25, Jaquan Burton at Florida Atlantic. At number 21, running back Carson Steele. At number 2, Marvin Harrison Jr., Ohio State. And at number 1, the freshman at South Carolina, Nick Harbor, who's going to play wide receiver or tight end. Mox, I think, let me say this. I think it's interesting that a true freshman, a guy who hasn't even played his first snap of high school or college football, is number 1 on this list as far as athletic freaks. Mox, you are a South Carolina Gamecocks fan. For those who don't know who Nick Harbor is, can you explain it to us, what his physical dimensions are, all of that stuff, to why the heck he would be number 1 on this list?
Yeah, he's about 6'6", 240, 245. He added a bunch of weight this spring. Was setting 100-meter records in the state of, he's from Washington, D.C., so the District of Washington. Gatorade Player of the Year. A 10.3 100 for anybody is blazing fast. For a dude who's 6'6" and like 230 plus, it is just like unheard of.
So off the top of my head, I think Tyreek Hill is like 10'4", Jalen Waddle is like 10'6", and those guys are small. You're talking about Nick Harbor being
I can't
6'5", 240. Yeah, DK Metcalf.
It's insane how athletic this dude is, and I mean he's like jacked, he's strong, he plays physical. I don't think he's going to end up at wide receiver long term. I hope he ends up as an edge because he could be just a force at that position. But he's also, what I like about Nick Harbor, and this is like getting a little bit away from the freak list, but like this dude is so smart, man. Like I think he's going to be really dedicated to just improving himself. Like he had like over a 4.0 GPA, and his dad's a aerospace engineer at NASA. Like I think he's just interested in football. I think he just is like, it's fine. But like, I don't know. When you're that athletic, you got to use that gift, man.
I did not know that his dad was a literal rocket scientist.
Yeah, and
his dad is a rocket scientist.
He's super smart too. I mean, yeah, I love the kid. Just really exciting kid to root for. I hope that I'm happy he's at South Carolina, but just in general, like a really awesome story about a freak athlete.
I'm looking at this list. I'm trying to see some players who dynasty fantasy football managers might be drafting next year in their rookie drafts. Johnny Wilson, the big wide receiver at Florida State, is one. Braylon Allen is going to be a first-round draft pick in your dynasty rookie drafts. So is Brock Bowers, the tight end at Georgia. Roma Dunze. Roma Dunze is a senior at Washington, had his best year last year, over 1,000 yards receiving. 6'4" guy who can move, a possession guy. I've seen him go in a lot of these two early first-round mock drafts, NFL mock drafts. And, those guys are going to go, those 3 or 4, they're going to be in the first round of your dynasty rookie drafts next year. I tell you who my favorite player on this list is, Chris. It has to be Nicholas Singleton.
Of course.
It has to be Nicholas Singleton, who is a very violent, no-nonsense runner at Penn State. He was the best athlete at the running back position in the class last year. We had him in high school over 22 miles per hour. Anything over 21 miles per hour is where you're really moving. When you get to 220 pounds and you're moving 22 miles per hour, you're a freak athlete. So Nicholas Singleton, to me, is a Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor type player. And we know that Dwight Galt and Chuck Losey is no longer the strength and conditioning coach at Penn State, but he's the one who established that brand with Saquon Barkley and who's Mike Gesicki and Troy Apke, all of these guys from Penn State who have tested as 99th percentile athletes. That's Chuck Losey's foundation. Dwight Galt is now the strength and conditioning coach there. When you get somebody like Branson Robinson in a program like that, they're going to go to the NFL Combine and tear things up. So you got to wait 2 more years for Nick Singleton, but there's a reason why he's my favorite one on this list here.
He's so fun to watch. I mean, you watch him, there are players who move different on the field. Like Nick Singleton's that guy. Like the explosiveness that he runs with it's special, like legit special. I mean, I don't think there's a running back that moves like him in college football right now. And I love some of the guys in this upcoming class, but yeah, Nick
Singleton is my RB1. I think he might have been my RB1 or RB2 as a freshman. Like
he should be. I think he's the best running back in college football.
He's the best running back in college football. Now he splits time with Kaytron Allen, but that's a good thing. Kaytron Allen, a good back there at Penn State. But Nicholas Singleton not taking all of that pounding every single week. Another player that I do want to highlight really quick here is Talon Green, the quarterback from Boise State. You're talking about, a 6'4", maybe 210-pound dual threat quarterback with these long strides. Don't be surprised this season, his first full season as a starter at Boise State, if you see him have some games where he has, 120 yards rushing, he's the type of player who could bust off a 60, 70-yard touchdown. Has some trouble with where he's going with the football, but fun player to watch. And if you need a reason to stay up, if you're on the East Coast and you need a reason to stay up for a game that starting at 10 p.m. Eastern time, Talon Green, let him be that reason for you. The Mountain West Conference always has some guy that you need to pay attention to. It was Jay Kaner last year. The year before that, it was Carson Strong. There's always somebody fun in the Mountain West Conference that you need to be watching. And Talon Green is that.
I love watching Talon Green. Like, what a talented player he is. I mean, he had a 91-yard touchdown last year. He's what? At least 6'6", 225. Like, he's a freak. You know who I'm surprised is not on this list? And I had to double check. I had to use my Control F, so I was double checking, triple checking. Joe Milton.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got the best arm in the country. I think, like, universally speaking, I'm not sure there's anyone who has a stronger arm. He moves really well for his size. Also, another big gifted quarterback. I don't know why you're like, if we're just looking at athletes, you're telling me that Joe Milton is not a better athlete than like Brendan Rice. Like, I think Brendan Rice is good and fine, but like, I'm looking at this list and I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know about some of the guys on this list over Joe Milton, but I mean, I could pick it apart a lot. Can I give you one name that's a sleeper for next year's draft that I think could go
Joe
pretty
Milton,
high?
the quarterback at Tennessee, who is going to be taking over for Hendon Hooker. We expect big things, bombs away in Josh Heupel's, Art Briles spread offense.
Yes, that's Joe Milton has also lost a job twice and transferred already once. So like, you're playing with a little bit of fire there, but he is a very physically impressive quarterback. Guy that I think could go round 3 next year, nobody's talking about, Jaquan Burton, who is 25 on this list. Florida Atlantic wide receiver. I think he's pretty Jaquan Burton.
You're making up names.
He's 25th on the list.
You're making up names. Stop it.
He is a really interesting player. And I know he's on I think he's a 5th-year guy, but he's definitely caught the eye of the Senior Bowl and the Shrine committees. So like, it wouldn't surprise me if he made it just because how athletic he is. Like that, him being on here is not surprising at all. I think he could be a round 3 pick in the NFL draft.
First of all, I need to go through all my leagues and make sure that he's rostered. If he's not, I'm going to pick him up. But for those, and I'm one of them, I'm honestly one of them. For those who have not seen Jaquan Burton play, give me a sense for what I can expect when I turn on the tape, or physically, like what he looks like, his size, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he's like probably 5'9", 5'10" speed guy. He's not super small. He's probably 180, 185. I don't remember off the top of my head. I could tell you. He's old for his class is the problem. Like, he is a 5th or 6th-year guy. He did transfer in from JUCO, which is why he's like kind of unknown. He's been at Florida Atlantic now for a couple of years. A really good field stretcher. A player who gets open deep pretty much at will, but they haven't had a quarterback who can get him the ball consistently, and he's also been competing for targets for a while. So with Tyrese Chambers, so it wouldn't surprise me if Burton had a breakout this year. Because I mean, I like what this offense could be, generally speaking, with the hire of Tom Herman from Texas Days a couple years ago. But yeah, he's a player that I have in a couple spots that I am just keeping an eye on. I just think the physical tools could get him to into the conversation for day 2.
I want to give you my list like all time, but another guy who I think was held off of this list, who will be on there next year, is Cam Seldon.
Yeah.
Cam Seldon, the running back, the converted wide receiver playing running back at Tennessee. When you watch his tape in high school, it almost looks like the tape is sped up because he is so much more explosive than the other players around him. And in the 2 years that we have been producing the freshman guide, Cam Seldon has had the fastest time that we've recorded at 23 miles per hour. Now, he's a former wide receiver, a gadget guy. I mean, I would compare him actually to Laviska Shenault. Like, Laviska Shenault and Deebo Samuel exist on the same spectrum, whereas Deebo Samuel is like the best version of what Laviska Shenault could ever hope to be. That's what Cam Seldon is, but he has that package in a really physically gifted, physically gifted package. 6 foot, 220 pounds, again, 23 miles per hour. That probably converts to him running, a sub 4.4, 4.39, 4.38, something like that. Excellent.
He's got like 10 set. He ran a 10.7 in the 100 meter. Like, at a guy who's 220, that's pretty impressive.
When you're sub 11 100 meter dash times, that's what we're always looking for. I was going to go into my like all-time freak list my personal all-time freak list that I would put guys that I would put on, but we're up against the break. So let's do that after the break. And Mox, that'll give you some time to maybe think of the same thing. I'm just going to give five guys, right, and then we'll get into the Pac-12. All right. It's Felix Sharpe, Chris Moxley. This is Campus to Canton on Better Sports Network.
Campus to Canton.
I feel like this is a quietly contentious point in dynasty fantasy football, what it means to actually be rebuilding. Some people say you should never truly be rebuilding. How do you view the rebuilding versus competing dichotomy in dynasty?
So I will be the first person to acknowledge that my preferred format of fantasy football is just redraft. The years that I have played dynasty, it has been, I've drafted a win now team because I've seen people that have just gotten into the cycle of rebuilding and thus they just don't make any progress. So if you're rebuilding for the 5th year in a row, I just, I don't know exactly how you get out of it, but yeah, it's definitely something that can happen. And a lot of people, especially when we come out of the NFL draft, everyone's just instantly shipping off, draft picks and everything. So, I mean, it's definitely something that can happen.
Joey, do you feel similarly to it? Do you feel like you see people getting stuck in the rebuilding loop?
I mean, I would say people that try to rebuild in the beginning of seasons, of their fantasy seasons, I see them get stuck in that rut. I would really try to only ever rebuild if I knew I was going to miss the playoffs. Like, I'm always trying to play to win, even if it's maybe I don't know.
I think my big thing is the word rebuild is a much shorter time frame than I think most people say it should be. Like, they look at rebuild as like 3 years out competing. Rebuild, you're looking to compete next season. You know what I mean? Like, if you're doing it now, you're looking to revamp, and maybe there's a one season where you ship it off, but that very next season you should be competing. If you're doing it like that, I'm cool with it, but you got to have a plan, not just keep getting the young players, keep getting the draft picks. Otherwise, you end up like Tim. Maybe not like Tim who gets a bye, but you make the playoffs, you're in that like 4 to 6 range every year, just hovering in the middle. Nothing ever gets better, nothing ever gets worse.
I think I play like you in Dynasty, Simon. I play in 3-year windows.
100%. That's my go-to. And with the rate at which Dynasty leagues turn over, you should really only ever play in a 3-year window.
Felix Sharpe and Chris Moxley. This is Campus2Canton on Better Sports Network. Will Chudy keeping us in line. Producer, I guess Will liked the first segment, giving us some good music here on the rejoin. All right, Mox, here are I just put this together really quick.
Me too.
My top 5 guys that I would put in the all-time freak list. All right, number 5. I'm going to go in descending order. Number 5, Sean Taylor. Sean Taylor, the safety who eventually ended up playing for the Washington Redskins, who's now deceased, unfortunately. But he could have played running back at Miami, was a vicious hitter, a great had tremendous ball skills. I think that part of his game is actually underrated. He could force turnovers just by hitting you and fumbling the ball, and he could also intercept the ball. Number 4 is Derrick Henry. I think that one speaks for itself. A 250-pound guy who ran a sub 4.5 at the combine, was a great player there at Alabama. At number 3, I've got Reggie Bush. I think that one's probably self-explanatory. Are all these guys, all of them except for Sean Taylor, were sitting at a Heisman finalist ceremony. Reggie Bush, if you're not old enough to remember Reggie Bush, he was a punt returner, a kick returner, running back, wide receiver, shifty, explosive, could catch the ball, dynamic, much better college football player than NFL football player, even though he had a good NFL.
He was too early.
Career. He was like 10 years before his class. Okay, but tell me this though: better running back prospect, Reggie Bush or Jahmyr Gibbs?
So that was the first name that came to mind when we were thinking about it, right? I would say Reggie Bush because Reggie Bush.
I would say Jahmyr.
If you put Reggie Bush in last year's running back class, he's going ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs. I think they would understand how to use him much better than the NFL did previously. Yeah, that's probably true. This is the thing. The NFL would have gotten mesmerized by all the flash and pomp and circumstance of Reggie Bush, but I think that Jahmyr Gibbs is a better interior runner and just as good of a receiver, functional receiver, than Reggie Bush. But Jahmyr Gibbs didn't return like punts and make all of these diving plays and stuff. Yeah,
I think that there's a chance that Jahmyr Gibbs would be a better prospect. At number 2, I got Charles Woodson. The only primarily defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy. Also played wide receiver at Michigan. I should have got like combine testing for these guys to justify this. But my number one is Ndamukong Suh. Ndamukong Suh at 300 pounds. He ran like a 4.8 or 4.7 at the combine. Super strong, bull rusher, all-around athlete. Chris Moxley, you just shrugged your shoulders in the air like he doesn't deserve.
No, I didn't. I was just surprised who your number one was.
Mark Ingram stole.
Yes, he did.
The Heisman Trophy from Ndamukong
Yes,
Suh. Ndamukong Suh should have had it. He should have been the second primarily defensive player to win the Heisman. But that's my 5. Sean Taylor, Derrick Henry, Reggie Bush, Charles Woodson, and Ndamukong Suh.
We don't have any overlap at all. I'm just going to give you. I actually wrote down 7. Is that okay? Can I give you 7?
No, you got it. 2 got to be outside looking in.
Outside looking in. Vincent Jackson. He's the number 1 athlete in our athleticism database.
Okay.
So he's a 100% athlete at 6'5", 240. I mean, you're not going to find guys that move like him super often. Who else do I want to leave out? I'll leave out Anthony Richardson, even though I think he's probably deserving of being top 5. He's special, man.
Oh, why did
that's who I thought was going to be your 1.
I didn't go in with any recent guys. That was an easy one. You're taking the low-hanging fruit there.
Okay, and then my 5 that I'll actually use. Deion Sanders. You play football, you play baseball, you play all positions at a high level, like that's special. Calvin Johnson. I was debating between him and Julio. Jones just like they're both just such freak athletes, size adjusted wise. Vernon Davis, like probably the best tight end prospect from an athleticism standpoint that we've ever seen. I don't think Kyle Pitts was quite there, but he was pretty darn close.
Vernon Davis, much better video game player than NFL.
He was still really good for a couple years.
He had like 94 speed at tight end. He was so versed, such a monster on Madden.
I don't remember how many that was, but last one I'll give you is Bo Jackson.
You had more time to think about your list than I had.
You on me already thinking about it.
I'm not giving you a ton of credit for having a better list than I did. I picked personal favorites.
Oh, if we get personal favorites, that's a different question. Chris Johnson would be one of mine. Does he still hold the combine record? No. Did John Ross break it?
No, it's John Ross.
Okay, so
John Ross 4.22 and Chris Johnson 4.23.
Yeah,
so
would be another good one. But when you break the combine record, it's pretty impressive. Period.
Let's transition here to the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is undergoing a lot of changes. Next year, these are all the teams that are leaving the Pac-12. Washington, Oregon, UCLA, and USC are all going to the Big Ten. So Rutgers versus UCLA next year is going to be an interconference matchup. Then you've got who's going to the Big 12? Colorado,
Arizona
State,
Utah.
I
think that's it.
And that's it. And that leaves the 4 other teams. And those teams are all, I mean, I don't know. They might join the Mountain West. We don't know what's going to happen with the last 4. Washington State, Stanford, Cal, and Oregon State. We don't know what's going to happen with those 4.
Stanford would be a really good addition to the ACC. Like I know geography's kind of funky, but like they're so similar to like UNC, Duke type school, Virginia. Like there are a ton of academic schools that really don't want to play a whole bunch of ball with the NIL requirements and whatnot. So I think Stanford would be a good fit. And plus, I mean, their athletic department is probably the best in the country. It's just they're not an attractive football school.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
got a great
non-revenue
sports.
sports.
Yeah, non-revenue
the issue.
Sports.
It's like
sports we don't care about.
Sports that aren't funding, but I mean, they also have a huge endowment. But I mean, so does like Rice football, but you're not like petitioning Rice to be in the SEC again. 3-0 against Alabama all time, by the way.
Rice is?
Yeah, Rice has never lost to Alabama.
That's a great stat. When I look at the conference, I think in addition to who's going to be there and what's the conference going to look like in 2024 and beyond, for this season, this is not even a question. It's like Colorado react. 130th in returning production. They had 50 transfers, some of whom have already transferred back out of the program. Coach Prime, his nature is to create a scene. And I think, to be honest, I think that he takes some notes from Jerry Jones. He played for Jerry Jones for a very long time. Jerry Jones is kind of the same type of character. I don't know if this team could gel in less than, they've really had from April to August to gel and to play a very tough Pac-12 schedule. I think the over-under on their team win total is like 3.5. I don't know how you get to 4 games with four wins for Colorado.
No, I don't see the 4th win. I certainly don't see a 5th win. So anybody talking about like bowl expectations needs to dial it back a little bit. I don't think a lot of people are, but I'm seeing people saying that Deion Sanders is going to throw 20 touchdowns this year. I'm not sure that's in the cards either. There's so little continuity here and they're bringing in more talented players than they lost because I had them graded as the worst team in the country last year, and that's saying something considering they're a Power 5 program. Well, I guess second worst. I think I had UMass worse. Whatever. You understand what I'm saying though. So I don't know. I just don't know how Colorado gets to. Is 4 wins a successful season? Year 1?
I think it should be a successful season. They won 1 game last year. They didn't even win a game. I think didn't they play 1 game out of the country? I don't think that their 1 game was like the first game of the season. And maybe I'm misremembering.
That's Northwestern. They haven't won a game on US soil in like 2 years or whatever it is.
Okay. But no, it should be a successful season if they win 4 games. I don't think that anybody's going to feel that way given the faux expectations that have been put on this program. I don't really understand it.
When you come in with the fanfare that you did, like being Prime, like I'm bringing Louis, stay or get out.
I don't know that he actually did, because some of the transfers that he got are just, yes, they had the recruiting pedigree when they were high school recruits going into college, but you're talking about a lot of guys who weren't playing at the programs that they were with. And now I don't know if all of those guys are Louis. Now, Cormani McClain, the number 1 cornerback in the class. Travis Hunter, the number 1 player in the 2022 freshman class. That's Louis baggage.
That's Louis.
Shedeur Sanders is more like a, very high-end bag that you can find at Target. I don't know that he's necessarily Louis.
I was going to say he's more like Toomey than he is Louis. We're talking like luxury travel brands.
I have, and you stumped me on that one because I don't even know what the luxury travel brands are. But we're definitely going to be paying attention to that spectacle. I will be at the first Colorado home game against Nebraska on September 9th. I can't wait for that.
That's one of their winnable games.
That is,
that's one of their winnable games.
If they lost by 15, would you be surprised?
No.
Yeah. No.
But I also wouldn't be surprised if they
won by 4. So. That's why we love college football. It's that we don't really know what to expect from season to season. I think the other important question for this conference, and when you look at the conference, USC is a premier team, a premier head coach, a premier quarterback, and one of the worst defenses in the country, 106th in the country. Alex Grinch, the defensive coordinator. Can he improve USC's defense? A guy who came under a lot of fire last year, rightfully so. This is a team that couldn't tackle. This is a team that looked to be lined up in the wrong spot. This is a team that is soft. But USC is one of these teams with playoff aspirations. Well, they might have to do it with a bottom 30 defense in the country.
I don't know if they'll be bottom 30, but I certainly don't expect them to be super improved or what they were last year. They really didn't add a ton of talent, like high-end talent. They added Bear Alexander in from Georgia, who's a defensive tackle. I think he's a good player, but I'm not even sure he's going to start week 1. They're just soft, man. Like, that's their problem. I don't like Alex Grinch as a defense coordinator, period, but these dudes just like, it's not that they can't tackle, they don't really want to. You know the meme from I think it's the Fab Five documentary where they're like, pretty boy. What was it called? Soft, pretty boy. And they're going around like naming like words about Christian Laettner.
Uh-huh.
That's how I feel about the USC defense.
That's how you feel about the USC defense.
I'm scared of that. That's the one thing holding them back too. It's a really weak unit.
It's a really weak unit. The quarterback class in this conference is the quarterbacks altogether are very, very strong. It's a fun conference when we look at the quarterback position. I don't know why I said that so weird. At Arizona, Jaden DeLora is a gunslinger who's probably going to turn it over a bunch, but he's also going to do, that thing where he scrambles and gets out of the pocket and throws it 50, 60 yards down the field to an open.
He's kind of like Auburn Bo Nix.
I think he has more athleticism than Bo Nix, and
That's
more I think he's even more reckless than Bo Nix is.
I think Bo Nix 2 years ago maybe
was too reckless.
Yeah.
At Arizona State, Drew Pine was a transfer in from Notre Dame, but Jaden Rashada might be in line to start week 1 because Drew Pine is hurt. Now, if you've been paying attention to this show since the offseason, Jaden Rashada was originally committed to
Miami,
Florida. Well, he was originally committed to Miami.
Florida first.
He was originally committed to Miami. I think he flipped his commitment to Florida. There was this whole big debacle where he was not going to get his NIL stuff, and so he opened up his recruitment at the very last minute. Ends up at Arizona State with Kenny Dillingham. Kenny Dillingham was the offensive coordinator at Oregon last year, kind of responsible for Bo Nix's resurgence. At California, you have Sam Jackson, who is a dual threat, a fun player to watch. However, he may not get the starting job this year, but that is the player that we're kind of watching. But we expect them to be a bad football team this year. At Colorado, you got the aforementioned Shedeur Sanders. At Oregon, it's not just Bo Nix. Austin Novosad is a player who kind of rose through the rankings late in the process, and a guy that Matt Bruni of our Campus2Canton team saw at Elite 11 and said, this is a guy that we need to watch. He ends up going to Oregon after Oregon loses the commitment from Dante Moore, a 5-star kid out of Detroit King in Michigan. At Oregon State, DJ Uyunglele and Aiden Childs. Aiden Childs, another one of a 4-star quarterback that we have gravitated towards. We actually interviewed Aiden Childs on the Campus2Canton podcast feed. Good player they've raved about in camp. I don't really know how to describe Aiden Childs. He's a guy who can scramble, but scrambles to throw. To me, it's reminiscent of Deshaun Watson. That's, I think, Aiden Childs' game. At Stanford, Mox, you make fun of me. I have no idea who the quarterback is at Stanford, and I just skip over it.
I think it's going to be Ari Patu, but I mean, I like the kid they brought in, Justin Lamson.
You are making up names.
He was the backup. He was competing with Garrett Schrader, and then towards ACL 2 years ago at Syracuse. I think he's a good player. I'd like to see him do a little bit of damage at Stanford, but I kind of like the freshman they brought in too, Miles Jackson. I think he's a pretty interesting player.
Listen, folks, at UCLA and in the country period, if I want you to pay attention to one freshman player. If you take anything from this show, is pay attention to Dante Moore. He is a game-ready quarterback who started as a freshman in high school. So he went from 8th grade to 9th grade that offseason. The coach just said, hey, we got something special in this 8th grader. We're going to make him the starter. And Detroit King is a big school, big-time football program in Michigan. Watch Dante Moore. Now, he's not really, exciting to watch. He's kind of like a game manager, but game-ready quarterback freshman in Dante Moore at UCLA. I think we're going to see him start sooner rather than later. At USC, you know about Caleb Williams. Did you know that his Malachi Nelson, also a 5-star quarterback in this class? Austin has called him one of the more accurate quarterbacks he's ever seen as a high school recruit. He's set to take over when Caleb Williams departs for the NFL draft after the season. At Utah, you got Cam Rising and then nobody after him. Cam Rising is hurt. He's not going to start this year, at least to start the season. It's going to be tough for Utah to kind of recover without him. At Washington, Michael Penix Jr., you should know him. He's a Heisman dark horse. Austin Mack is a quarterback who reclassified to this year's freshman class to take that tutelage under Michael Penix Jr. I'm going to watch for him next year and the seasons after. And then at Washington State, You got Cam Ward, who is one of the best scramblers, one of the best broken play players in the country, in my opinion. We haven't really gotten to talk about them because we're kind of going through this list fast. We'll get into the quarterback position and wide receiver, running back when we come back. It's Felix Sharpe, Chris Moxley. This is Campus2Canton on Better Sports Network.
Breece Hall right now, and I've talked to plenty of high-stakes players, I'm sure you have too, Kev. Had Hall not torn his ACL last year, he might have been the 101 in drafts this year. That's how good he was looking last year, and obviously with the addition of Aaron Rodgers. At the 305, running back 11 behind Derrick Henry and Ramondre Stevenson, right ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs and Najee Harris. Your thoughts on him as a mid-third round pick? How have you been attacking him? Have you been getting him at that spot so far this year?
Yeah, if I start out with 2 wide receivers, Breece Hall is right at the top of the queue coming into the third. If I knew he'd be healthy for week 1, I was still a little.
Well, he'd be going higher than the mid third.
Right. He may go 101 or well, RB1 at least.
Yeah.
But I don't think we know that even if he's healthy in spring and the summer.
Mm-hmm.
I still like if I'm running a team, if I'm the coach, I'm bringing him back slow. Like he's on a pitch count. Like I want him for the end of the season because I got Aaron Rodgers for the playoffs, right? Like even if he's fully healthy, I would work him in slow. But that is actually what you want. Like he's still going to get the high value touches. So yeah, if we know he's healthy, he's a first rounder. So like if he's sitting there in the third, especially when I get 2 wide receivers to start, I'll take Hall all day.
Yeah, it almost makes you think that the uncertainty with Breece Hall has made him unfairly fall too far, right? Like, right. Because we're talking about the team here in June. They're still hoping that he's ready for week 1. This is not, oh, we'll see what happens. Oh, we're taking it day by day. Oh, we're liking how he's coming along. No, they still think by week 1. And the fact that we have that timeline, I think, maybe bumps him up, especially as the drafting season gets deeper and deeper here in July and August. Maybe we start seeing him go up the boards as well.
Join all of our live talk shows on the Better Sports Network YouTube channel. Call in or live chat with our hosts and community. Watch all of our shows and see clips of our best moments and interviews on YouTube and Twitter at bettersports.com, and follow Better Sports on Twitter. Mox, we are going through this pretty fast. I don't know if there's anything that you want to say, kind of recap the quarterback position. Michael Penix Jr. is a college football stud. Cameron Ward could become one. And I think we're watching for Malachi Nelson and Dante Moore probably in 2024, but guys that we really need to – potential superstars in college football.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think this conference has best quarterback play, especially at the top. I mean, you got – 4 really special quarterbacks: Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, Bo Nix. Okay, you have 3 really special quarterbacks. And then a really nice group behind them. Like if Cam Rising's healthy, he's really fun to watch. Cam Ward is just like a fun player in general.
Cam Ward is like chasing a chicken. He is that quick behind the pocket. He doesn't always throw to the right person, but just a fun player to watch because it is like chasing a chicken.
He's fun. He's a lot of fun. But yeah, the story in this conference is high-end quarterback play and then true freshmen that have potential to do actual damage this year. And I think the top 2 are we talked about, right? Dante Moore and Jane Rashada. They will start. I'm very confident saying that they will both start games this year.
I want to skip running back and go to wide receiver and tight end in this conference because wide receiver and tight end in this conference is really, really sexy. And I don't know who has the best wide receiver core. I think it's Washington. At Washington, you have Rome Odunze, who's the outside guy, and Jalen McMillan, who's the slot wide receiver. Both Rome Odunze and Jalen McMillan we're seeing go in the first or second round of these way too early 2024 mock drafts. Rome Odunze, a 6'4", 205-10-pound possession wide receiver, and Jalen McMillan, a slot wide receiver. But behind them, Jeremy Bernard, very good player out of Las Vegas who was at Michigan State last year, beat our year 1-0 thresholds. That just means he played well as a freshman. He's very good. He's now at Washington, a team that's going to throw the ball way more than Michigan State was. And then Jalen Polk, even with Rome Odunze and Jalen McMillan both going over 1,000 yards last year, Jalen Polk had over 700 and had a few big games. So I think it's Washington that has the best receiver core in this conference, Mox. But, I mean, Oregon is right up there with them. Oregon has Troy Franklin, who is like a lanky speed guy. And then they've got Tez Johnson, who made the freak list last year, even though he's 165 pounds. He's an uber athlete who played high school football with Bo Nix. Explosive player, smaller explosive player. But they have a freshman who's my favorite freshman wide receiver in the class, Jerrion Dickey. His comp is A.J. Brown, a big bully who's 215, 220 pounds, 6'3", played everywhere in high school. Now he's at Oregon, but they've got some depth too in Gary Bryant Jr., and I'm forgetting who else is there. But who would you pick, Mox, between the Oregon wide receiver core and the Washington wide receiver core?
I like Washington, and I think they have the best draft eligible receiver in Rome Odunze in the conference. I think that's safe to say. I like Jalen McMillan a lot. Jeremy Bernard, transferring from Michigan State, really solid player. But what kind of separates them, I think, is that they brought in 2 wide receivers this year in their freshman class that are going to be, I think, impact players. Tayshaun Lyons and a guy who dominated spring, and I see nobody talking about, Rashid Williams, I think could both be really good players. So that's what kind of separates it, because I like the class that Oregon brought in, but I've always kind of on the fence about Troy Franklin. I like Jerrion Dickey a lot, but he's he needs a lot of development, I think, still to get where we want him to be. And Tez Johnson's like a gadgety player, and behind them, I mean, it's just guys. I would also put my weight behind, USC, obviously, because they have a bunch of 5-stars in that room. But I think Arizona's pretty interesting. Jacob Cowie and Tet McMillan are a really good 1-2 punch. They brought in Montana Lamonius Craig from that Colorado team, one of the transfers out.
Whoa, timeout. Montana Lamonius Craig scored 3 touchdowns in Colorado's spring game, and then after the spring game said,
"See ya.
Peace, Coach Prime. I'm entering the transfer portal," and then ended up at Arizona.
That's a nice trio, though. I like their trio last year too. Dorian Singer, who's now at USC, was a really solid player for them. But I think Tet McMillan is a potential, I won't say superstar, but really, really good player.
Okay, I don't disagree with you. And when I look at Tet McMillan, I think the natural comp for him is Drake London. Do you agree or disagree?
Oh, I like that comp. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, that's a good one.
Why didn't you tell me about this Rashid Williams at Washington, who's apparently going off? You saved this stuff for the audience. I need to know some of this stuff, Mox, so I can add these players to my watch lists. Every show I have with you is some player that you've never talked to me about, and I'm like, why am I hearing this for the first time now?
I think I've talked about him in our Campus2Canton Slack or Discord. At one point or another.
You haven't. You need to text
He's in the CFF guy.
Text me and tell me. Okay. All right. Let's go to LA. Let's go to USC. You said that they have a good one also. Now, the interesting thing about USC's wide receiver core is the guys here who aren't really Lincoln Riley guys. So Brendan Rice, a transfer from Colorado. Dorian Singer. Taj Washington is a transfer from Memphis, who started, Taj Washington is probably in his 5th or 6th year playing.
I think it's 50 or 60.
5th or 6th year playing. Taj Washington, I was thinking that Lincoln Riley didn't recruit Brendan Rice, but he actually did. He transferred year 1 over with Lincoln Riley. It's only Taj Washington that Lincoln Riley didn't recruit. Dorian Singer is a transfer from Arizona, who walked on to Arizona, had no FBS offers. His last year of high school football, he was his freshman, between his freshman and junior season, he was playing in Minnesota. Minnesota wasn't going to have football, so he moved to Arizona. Arizona was 2020, COVID. He wanted to move somewhere so he could have a place to play his last year of high school football. Goes to Pinnacle, one of the premier high school football programs in the country. That's where Dylan Royola was scheduled to go. Spencer Rattler, the number one quarterback in his class, who's now at South Carolina. He went there. Deuce Robinson, who's now at USC, went to Pinnacle. Ended up at Pinnacle, did not have a scholarship offer, so he walked on at Arizona, had a great season at Arizona last year, and parlayed that into entering the transfer portal, and now is at a big-time program in USC. So Lincoln Riley did this last year where he brought in Jordan Addison. I don't know that Dorian Singer is like the number one, the alpha dog on this roster. It could be Taj Washington. It could be Brendan Rice. It could be one of the freshmen, probably not. But Zachariah Branch is a Tyreek Hill comp. Mekhi Lemon is a guy who can kind of play a little bit in different places in any of the three wide receiver positions. And then in that aforementioned Deuce Robinson, he's 6'6", 225 pounds. He's got all the catch radius that you want in a wide receiver. It's probably a wide receiver core. We're going to see a bunch of guys get like between 300 and 700 yards receiving, and it's going to be spread out a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Dorian Singer's over-under was posted at like 999. Yeah, that was a little crazy when that came out. I don't see that happening. I mean, I like the entire unit. I think it's good. Just don't have any feeling for where target distribution is going to go. I mean, it won't matter. Caleb Williams is your quarterback, so you're going to score points. But it's a good unit, really deep group that I think you'll get some. I expect Zachariah Branch to be involved starting potentially week 1. They play San Jose State and then they play Nevada week 2. So I expect him to see the field, and we're going to see a little glimpse of that freshman, probably him and Mekhi Lemon. So, but yeah, it's a really solid unit. It's just there's not an alpha guy, I don't think.
Deuce Robinson is one of my favorite players in this class because of, the value where I could get him in supplemental drafts and freshman drafts. Mekhi Lemon and Zachariah Branch were going well before Deuce Robinson. Deuce Robinson originally projected to play tight end, but he's just going to be a big body wide receiver, at least for now.
I can see him converting back, though. I think he has the frame to add enough weight.
Definitely, 100%.
Yeah.
He could get up to 250 pounds if he wanted to. Yeah. But if he's looking at it from a value perspective and saying, hey, can I be a 6'6" wide receiver and get that wide receiver franchise tag one day? That might be what he's looking at. So elsewhere in the conference, let's go to Colorado real quick since that's a big storyline. You got Travis Hunter, who's been playing both cornerback and wide receiver. He may be needed on the offensive side of the ball this year, so we might see more of him playing wide receiver than we did at Jackson State last year. Xavier Weaver and Jimmy Horn also figured to be heavy in the rotation there for Coach Sean Lewis's offense. And Mox, you like Travis Hunter as a wide receiver draft pick in Campus2Canton leagues.
I mean, if he was playing wide receiver, he'd potentially be the best wide receiver in this conference. He's just special. He's just a special athlete, like one of those players who, regardless of what position he'll play, is going to be fantastic. I think he is a corner long term, but really special. Just moves different, has that extra gear that not a lot of players have. He's just fun to watch too.
Just one more player that I want to mention in this conference for folks to track is J. Michael Sturdivant. He will be the number 1 wide receiver at UCLA. He is a transfer from Cal, so he's either going to catch passes from Dante Moore or Ethan Gerbers, whoever just starts at UCLA. I personally hope that it is Dante Moore. Let's go to running back here. Now, running back not as sexy as the wide receiver position, but there is some talent here. There was a 6-week span where true freshman Damian Martinez at Oregon State ran for over 100 yards, and it wasn't cupcakes. I mean, he ran for over 100 yards against Oregon in the last game of the regular season. He's 6 foot, 232 pounds, as a true sophomore, Would you rather projecting for the NFL, Mox? Would you rather have your 6 foot, 232 pound Damian Martinez, who ran for close to 1,000 yards last year, at a six-game streak with over 100 yards, or the entire running back room at USC, which includes Marshawn Lloyd, a transfer from South Carolina, Austin Jones, a transfer from Stanford, and then 2 freshmen in Quentin Joyner and Amarian Peterson, talented players. Marshawn Lloyd is probably his comp was Frank Gore coming out of high school. Austin Jones, a smaller player. Who would you rather have? USC's running back room or just Damian Martinez at Oregon State?
I think I'd rather just take shots on the USC room. I don't think Damian Martinez is that athletic, and then you're going to tell me, it doesn't matter. He's 230 pounds, but you got to have some sort of functional athleticism, and I don't really see that on his tape. He's not an athletic 230. He can make things happen, but I don't know. I think it's going to translate super well to the NFL. So he's kind of just you people are so infatuated
with speed and all these stopwatches and all of that stuff.
We started the show with a freak list. Damian Martinez is nowhere near. He might be on the bottom 100 freaks.
Yeah. Let me get this read in really quick. Mox, before we get out of here. Fantasy Alarm All-Pro subscription. Start a 7-day free trial of Fantasy Alarm's All-Pro subscription and get the fantasy football draft guide and cheat sheet for free. Go to fantasyalarm.com/draft. You see how professional I am? Getting the read in right before we go off the air. I was supposed to get
how you intended it.
That's exactly how I intended it. We're pros. The running back rooms are not really sexy. Let's go back to Colorado because people always want to know Colorado. They have Alton McCaskill, who is a transfer from Houston, who might have been one of the best freshmen in his class as far as productivity. He tore his ACL last year, so didn't play last year, and then transferred to Colorado. The problem is that he was in Houston, which was a fine program for him to be at. Colorado might be trash this year, absolute trash. And you're putting him behind a new offensive line, new system, and he's coming back from an ACL. I don't know. I might have stayed at Houston and taken my shots there, my chances there.
They were shocked that he transferred. Dan Holgerson came out and said it he was taken shocked that because he said he wasn't going to, then ultimately did, which means that he got the bag from Colorado late in the process. He was one of the last transfers in. His freshman season was crazy though. At least a dozen touchdowns.
Another guy who has the requisite size for the NFL. I don't have his dimensions right in front of me, but he's adequately sized. I have to mention Jaquindon Jackson, who is the latest player to convert from quarterback to running back to get on the field. Jaquindon Jackson, though, so the last player to do that was Roshan Johnson, who was just drafted by the Chicago Bears, backing up not Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson for Texas. Jaquindon Jackson is probably a better athlete than Roshan Johnson, so I'm really anxious to see what he does as the primary back for Utah. Utah doesn't have their quarterback, so we might see Jaquindon Jackson play some Wildcat quarterback or something like that.
Keep an eye on that week 1 game.
Keep an eye on that week 1 game. College football is almost here, and we will be here with you to watch it. We'll see you next week.
It's good. The job is done. We can go home now.